What's up, folks? Once again, you are watching My Sketchy Goodness, number 35. We are joined, of course, by the amazing, the talented Keith Gratchow. How you doing, Keith?
Good. You always catch me like I'm trying to post that we're live on YouTube, on Facebook. So I'm just trying to get that done real quickly. Okay, there we go.
No stress. Perfect.
And yes, man.
I'm well, thank you. I had a thought and an annoyance that is bubbling up on me that I wanted to talk to you about because I feel like it'll be fun to talk with you about because of all of the AI stuff that's come out.
Oh my God. It was the same thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
In sync.
Let me start with mine because I feel like it could become a little thing that's self-contained and we deal with it, or it might chain into what you're after. So firstly, to the folks out there in YouTube land, thank you for tuning in. Highly appreciate it. In My Sketchy Goodness, if you've never watched, basically Keith and I talk about comics, making comics, comic art, as well as sort of overdoing this a number of episodes. We've broadened our subject range to encompass art in general, things impacting art, and as a result of that, and sometimes just Keith draws amazing things. So one of the things in the world of art and video production and content creation, I feel like is maybe the linchpin here, is, I don't know about you, Keith, but when I'm getting my creative on, when I'm writing, or if I'm playing Magic the Gathering, I'm deck building, or I'm making up a scenario for D&D campaigns, I like to have music on in the background. Or when I'm playing D&D, I will have music on in the background to set the mood. And my biggest source of that is to go to YouTube, find an hour-long thing by typing in like fantasy music tavern, fantasy music fighting, gothic landscape, whatever, and see what hour-long music gets generated. And I loved that for the longest time because you would often have these artists who want to create something, and they're probably doing it digitally, and I have nothing wrong with that, mind you. I do all my content creation digitally as well. So they might make symphonic pieces and all these beautiful hunks of music, and then they'll like take a still image, or they'll have a friend make a still image, and they'll just loop it for an hour. And I love that I can click that, I can have some cool music for whatever I'm doing, and then also by viewing their content for an hour, listening, but it's on the screen technically, that helps their viewership numbers, their minutes watched numbers, which all comes into how you get monetized on the YouTubes. As of late, the last month, I'll say, but it's really gotten on my nerves lately. I keep finding these hour-long videos, and one, the art on it is AI generated. But then when I click in the description, because this is what I've started doing because I hate this so much, I click in the description and it brings it up for me, and I look down at the bottom of the written description, and YouTube has tagged it altered or synthetic content. And one, it aggravates me. I want YouTube to be able to just have me go no AI content at all, and then I can just watch real stuff, like human made. And I had a thought in that sort of ties into something we talked about earlier, which was specifically in this instance now, because it is tagged altered or synthetic content, I now don't know how much of that music was man-made. Maybe just the art. Maybe the fact that this beautiful landscape has rain coming down, that was the AI chunk of it. Maybe it was a small portion of the music, or maybe it was the entire thing that I'm viewing is AI. And so I've now taken to, if I see that tag, back out of it, find something else, Um, and then I've even seen one where someone was like remixing music, and they were so abashed to be like, "Yeah, I use AI to make this tune, and it's super cool, and I hope you love it." And I'm like, "But but you didn't do anything. You probably went to Gronk or whatever and wrote in, "Hey, take this song that I like and make it into this style," and then clicked go and waited for it to process and then spit out a track. And like, it's now aggravating me to the point where I'm very upset with it, and I feel
Mhm.
YouTube should implement a button where I can turn off AI content.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
right? Just like a simple. I go into my settings, AI content off, and now I don't see it. Um,
Right.
what are your thoughts on that? And what the hell are you drawing?
I don't know. This is some kind of Pokemon like wood creature. Uh, don't ask me where this came from.
Ugh.
I couldn't tell you. Um, yeah. So I mean, one of the things that comes up in my mind about this is if an artist or an artist
Thank you.
is, and I put that in quotes for anybody listening, um, is using this kind of program to create their art, music, uh, or illustration or something, some kind of part of the workflow. And we've talked about this before, but let's talk about it again.
Yeah.
You're always, if it's found out you're using any kind of AI amongst the artist community, anybody who supports real art versus
Mhm.
AI prompts or generated AI, generative AI, you're going to become into doubt as to whether or not how much of what you created was actually you and how
Right.
much was done by some kind of program, right?
Hmm.
And that's a shame, really, because at the end of the day, and this may be the one thing about like where the having a button that you can press. Um, my only concern would be that some people that have work that isn't AI generated, but for whatever reason it's detected as AI, all of a sudden can't
Oh
be
my
found,
god.
right? And so like that's the darker side of it, right? So the if you have somebody who is just that good and they don't for whatever reason they're not showing their process work in a
Hmm.
way where people believe what they're doing has been done by hand, um, then they're going to always they may be shunned in the community. They may lose work because of it. But on
Hmm.
the flip side of it, if you are using AI and you're using it in a way that is going to it's obvious you're using it or you're admitting you're using it, it's going to be hard for people to look at what you're doing and go, but how much of it was you, right?
Right. Like, so what the two of those things you mentioned there. So one, the idea of like, especially if you're owning up to it, you're saying, "Hey, I made this with AI." Like you said, like now every single little detail is into question, and it's like, did you actually do any of it? Did you just say, "Hey, draw me a picture or write me a chapter where character X does this, and by the end of the chapter it's this, or by the end of the page it's this," and like that. The idea then that if they're just owning up to it, which I think is nice and comes from a good place, but yeah, like now it's you can't trust it, and like I find that very interesting. Um, and then you mentioned as well, like what if someone is good enough that yeah, the system flags it anyway. Because like in a lot of email systems now and a lot of student writing at universities, they have been getting students have been getting flagged for having too proper of a grammar especially when it comes to the use of a, a double dash, I think it's called. Um, I truthfully I don't know, and that's a part of I think why it's getting flagged that way. Uh, but it's basically when you have like an extra long hyphen in the middle of a
Hmm.
sentence to highlight a word or subject matter that's necessary. But it's like I feel like now that the floodgate of AI creativity, again in air quotes creativity, AI generation is open. It's not something you can just stem the flow of, right? And I think it'll take time for us to dam up where we put our content to allow it to be sorted properly.
So
Um,
there
yeah.
are some companies. So a friend of mine, actually a friend of the pod, Gus Aviles, who did, he and I did Zombie Jesus Vampire Hunter together.
Oh,
He
yeah.
and I have had this conversation too, and he posted a company that was doing closed AI. And I think it was an animation company doing closed AI, and I think and that's another thing we've talked about before, but we'll talk about
Mhm.
again, which is there is a world where AI ethically within the arts can be achieved. And I'm not.
Yeah.
And when we talk about AI, I think we should also be we're kind of narrowing it down to like the creative arts. Like AI
Yeah.
unto itself can be a really interesting tool to help with civilization. Again, used morally,
Oh,
but
massive.
yeah, but within like the arts, if you use like a closed system, which is essentially you have your own bank of images and
Mhm.
content that you've created and or you've paid for, or it's public domain, so therefore it's something that can be shared freely. And if you're using that and using AI as a tool, and of course the uh, AI itself, because it takes up so much energy. If it's in like a
Yeah.
system, let's say it's like clean energy, like they're using they've built their data banks in some place where it's clean energy and it's
Mhm.
providing work for people, and it's not drawing any kind of resources that can be used by the locals. It's not taking advantage of lower class people in any
Yep.
way, and that kind of thing. If it's like windmills where it's just
Yeah.
it's not hurting people, then I would say, yeah, I think that's great. And there are some companies, and I don't know about this company where they're sourcing the AI from. I don't know if they have their own,
Oh, okay.
but small battles. At least it's a closed system, which is they're using their own. They're hiring artists to create the work, and then I believe like they've got, as I said, like imagery that's
Oh,
already been paid for, and so it's
yep.
creating like some cool TV feed, like maybe shorts or
Mm.
TV shows or whatever it is that they're using it for. So in that case, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But otherwise, yeah, when people are using AI in a very reckless way, whether it's
Yeah.
to create art or, and this is the thing I wanted to talk about, which is when
Ooh.
people are using these caricatures of themselves, AI generated caricatures of themselves. It's really upsetting because, number one, I did, I mean, I do personalized illustrations of people. It's pretty much the thing I do when I'm not doing comic books or teaching. And I can, and I'm not saying that these people would have hired me specifically, but it's that you're basically taking stolen artwork from artists like
Oh.
me to create these generated caricatures of you, and you could have paid them. You should have paid somebody to do it for you. And at this point, it's hard for me to look at that person and go, if you're not familiar with the harms of AI, I mean, we can then go into like the environmental impacts and how it affects people, lower income families and communities where the
Mhm.
data centers are usually located, right? If you're not worried about, let's say, your own security, when these companies, all they're doing is data mining your face and any
Yeah.
information you're inputting, like all of the things about yourself into this database, so now they can use it and do what they want with it because you're essentially giving it to them, right? So there's
Yes.
all these things about it that are harmful to you, harmful to the artist community, harmful to the environment, harmful to people that live in the area. where the data centers are. It's just all around a very negative thing. And the companies that are creating these apps for you to use are knowingly doing it. They're basically they're like, hey, this is a great way for us to make money to data
Mm-hmm.
mine your information, right? And so I'm at a point now where I've posted to stop using it. I've contacted people to stop using it. I'm just done. I'm like, at this point, if I see you,
Yeah.
you have it on your Facebook or Instagram, I'm just unfriending you. I'm not gonna. It's not to mean that in life I hate your guts. It just means on social media, I don't like what you're doing. I think it's harmful. And maybe if I see you in person and we can have a conversation about it, I can say to you what I just said a moment ago.
Yeah.
And of course, now it's been recorded on this podcast, so hopefully somebody watching the podcast will think twice about doing it. And so that's where I stand on it right now. I'm just tired of like taking time
Yes.
and energy, and social media isn't really a place to have nuanced conversation about this kind of thing. So I've never been comfortable doing it anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
in this case, I'm just like, I'm not even going to take the time. I just did it tonight to somebody that, I mean, it's not like I have a good, like close connection with a person, but I like seeing their content. And it's like, well, you know what? I just can't
On.
unsee
Yeah.
what you've done. I feel like, you should know better at this point, and ignorance
Yeah.
isn't an excuse.
No, I agree. Like it's frustrating. So you
Mm-hmm.
touched on a bunch of stuff that I think is important, and I want to like flush out each of them a little independently.
Sure.
So the thing you mentioned about where the data centers go and what they impact their local people on. Um, so for those of you out there who are not aware, one research, you will likely come across more information that I currently have from my own understanding, but to the best of my knowledge, the issue with the data mining is, um, in order to get AI to work properly, and to have it be able to process the amount of data it's trying to process to spit this thing out for you, especially if it's an image. God forbid if it's a video, it's even more because it's all that RAM and data it needs, and all the gigs of however big the final product is. Um, that takes enormous processing power, which means you need an enormous amount of computers functioning, and that all draws a hell of a lot of energy, right? Like just the act. Admittedly, my tower, my precious tower, is fairly old. It's, I'm gonna say, 8 years old now. Um, and when I'm running it for streaming or trying to do video editing through the Adobe suites, um, it gets a little loud because it's processing, it's working, and that's just me on my own running my little one video that I'm by hand doing, and it's just trying to deal with that. And so when you have a data center, it is taking the commands of however many people are using it, trying to process it all at the same time, render videos and images. And so the extreme draw on power alone in the area means that sometimes the locals living in the area where this thing goes, which is usually a warehouse where they're going to buy it for cheap on a cheap plot of land that they can build quickly, which means usually a lower SES area. Um, Basically, all of a sudden, they might literally have issues with power. Um, it can affect even the local economy, which sounds weird, but it's true. Um, so there's a lot of impact on the people living around these centers. Um, that alone, problem, right? So in an ideal world, Keith, perhaps an AI data center should be a bunch of towers buried, or a bunch of PCs buried, 100 feet below some Arizona desert where they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of solar panels that can all collect the energy, route it down to the computers where they're underground, staying cool, and then that can,
Mm-hmm.
right? In an ideal world, let's say that's possible. The next issue that you mentioned, to me, is about the data farming end of it. So the way that Keith and I mostly talk about AI, and most artists will talk about it, is you go to an AI program and say, hey, I want a picture of Batman throwing his batarang, jumping over a roadblock or something. And it goes, all right, cool, give me a second. And then it processes and it does its thing, and it'll spit out an image of Batman doing that to the best of its ability. And again, how it's doing that is going and pulling resources. And, oh, what does Batman look like when he's jumping? And it'll pull a bunch of images and synthesize. And then, oh, what's the batarang even look like? And it'll pull that up. What's a roadblock? And it'll pull that up. And it'll try and jam them all together. And that's why you'll have stuff where Batman suddenly has 6 fingers, or maybe an extra chunk of cape, or, weird stuff. Because it's trying, but it's failing. But the thing is with that is it's pulling out other people's drawings of Batman. So if Keith had gone on X, snapped a shot of a Batman that he drew and posted going, hey, this is Batman for October Inc., it might just go, oh, cool, Batman image. And all of a sudden this thing might look like Keith's Batman. So there's your theft portion, right? But the insidious bit, because that is a very directly you're making art. The insidious stuff that Keith is mentioning is some time ago, Facebook, TikTok, I think, had one. A whole bunch of these programs had a thing where, like, calculate your face age or see yourself as, Sonic the Hedgehog character. And so you'd take your selfie and it would, like, scan your face and save the image, and then it would augment it or whatever and make you look like a Sonic character or whatever. Now, at face value, that's kind of cool. But that AI company now has an image of what your face looks like. And if you do that over a period of time, they now have what you look like as you age. And so they can track how you have changed. And then it's extreme personal information that they are saving. And then you're just giving them because, oh my God, what do I look like as Sonic? And it's insidious, and I don't like that at all. And I think, Keith, you're correct. It's wrong, and it's weird. And then, Keith, when it comes to just being tired of it, I agree. Like, I like the idea of the closed AI. So I remember I believe it was I did an interview with Sean Daly, and me and him were talking about work and his books and stuff. And then afterward, right, we were just having a little cool down chat. And one of the things that he mentioned was basically when it comes to his art, what he'd really like to do is hire someone to do basically his backgrounds. So he can draw his characters, and then he can have a backup artist come in and do backgrounds for him. And talking about AI, like the idea of a closed circuit where the only thing it's referencing is what you feed it, meaning you could feed it only your art. That would be great for him because he could go, cool, I'm going to draw a bunch of buildings and streets and lamps and crowds and cars and feed it to this thing, and then say, hey, in the background of this panel I just drew, can you put a street that is doing this and maybe cars and some people? And it'll go, oh, well, let me look at the cars and people you gave me and plug it in. And I think that's very ethical, like morally speaking and ethically speaking, when it comes to how to use it. I just fear that the issue with that is, the real issue, is most people, and in most capacities in which AI is used, they don't want to take the training time. Whereas if you allow AI of any sort to just have access to the internet, you don't have to train it. You can just say, hey, write me a scene where Mario fights the purple dinosaur from our childhoods in, Barney. I don't know. Where Mario fights Barney on Mount Doom, right? And it'll go, oh, cool. What does Mario look like? What does Mount Doom look like? What does Barney look like? And synthesize. So yeah, it's just it's frustrating. Like, it's, again, I wish the tools would be usable, but I fear that the dam is sprung on that one, and it will take very long for us to patch it back up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd like to think that there are more and more companies out there that are recognizing importance of traditionally drawn or traditionally skilled artists that may be using hand drawn or digital drawings, whatever. But either way, that they want that, they want the authentic, and uh, because that's going to be important to a lot of companies. They're going to make sure they've got money for it, and they're going to, I mean, hopefully pay appropriately for it. But either way, and I think that is happening now. I think I see people post on Instagram where they're like, yeah, I was hired by a company, and they were like, no AI. Like, this is like, we're all about, and so
Hell
I'm
yeah.
hoping, as much as there are all these places that are, all these companies that are taking advantage of AI in the unethical way and going, it's inevitable, so we might as well jump on, take advantage of it, which, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think that you have to, you just because it's the thing that everybody's going to be using doesn't mean you have to give into it. I think, as I said, as long as there's the bigger part of using AI is that you don't let your own skill sets atrophy, and you have to be a conscientious uh, user of, if you're going to use
Mm-hmm.
any of these things. Like, again, set aside the environmental and all that stuff. But if you're using Chat GPT or Grok or something, and you're using it in a very as ethically possible when it comes to like your own skill set. So you're not like, write me this, blah, 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 but you're like, here is something I've written. Maybe you can like clean it up for me. That,
Yeah.
and again, like what it's still not crazy about it, but that kind of thing is I think there's benefit to it. I can see, the benefit to being able to use it in that creative way, to something more menial that you need to
Mm-hmm.
have done. But you still have to be careful about it, because like, especially if in your community it would be considered something unethical to use AI, and so you don't want people to you know not you hire you because they think you're using it in that unethical way.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, um, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are still just not doing it correctly, but I think there's also a lot of people that are recognizing what it is and fighting against it. And so it's just going to be like, kind of like the whole when the NFT thing first came around, which was like,
Yeah.
that who even uses NFT anymore? I think that AI is going to be integrated into everything, but I also think that the aspects of certain unethical aspects of it will, like the creation of, let's say, videos or art,
Mm-hmm.
like songs or something. I think there may be enough of a backlash that artists will be like, I'm not even going to go touch it, right?
I hope
Because
so.
I don't want to be viewed in my community as somebody who's cheating, right?
Yeah. Like I even think the idea of, if you're using it, say, as ethically as possible, so you're not using it in any capacity to steal someone else's art or their work. I think it's interesting you bring up like the idea of your skills atrophying, where if you're not using your skills to do this thing, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to do the thing. Um, and you sort of mentioned earlier that, like, say if you're doing a written piece and you use ChatGPT or whatever to sort of clean it up, even then, right? Like, so say if I went to write something and I just word vomited for however long to this unconscionable just flurry of ideas that maybe had some backbone in it to be a story, and then went and, hey, ChatGPT, make this make sense, and have it filter it. I, on the end of the skills, I think that is a part of the writing, though, right? Like, it's such a weird thing where, like, every part of the creative process is there and is different in every artist because of the skills you bring to the table, because of your biases, because of your experience, your past, and your goal for the piece. that handing it over, whatever it is, to say ChatGPT to clean it is like, I don't know, it
Well,
takes me
what
out
are
of
the
it,
things you're always going to wonder what would have happened if I pushed myself that much further to,
right?
because like
Ah,
the thing, first of all, whatever it spits out, it's not your idea, and so then it's always going to be a part of the thing you create. Going, well, everything was mine except not everything was mine, right? And you're
yeah.
going to wonder. So for a good example, when I collaborate with somebody, um, and we're just like word vomiting it out, and then like we're going down a path where wait, this isn't working, this isn't working, oh man, this is getting really frustrating. And then you could easily just go, well, let's just chat gpt everything we just said and see what it comes out with. Or you let it sit for a while and you think about
Hmm.
it, and you're in the shower and all of a sudden an idea pops up and it's like, oh my god, this is great. You're by using the chat gpt, are you actually going to go, well, we already have an idea, so I'm not even going to think about it anymore? So now part of your creativity that you would normally, the problem solving would be like running in the background of your computer brain, right? And it may not be front and center, but it's still kind of crunching
Clicking.
those
Yeah.
scenarios. Go, what, because that happens to me. I'll be like frustrated. I'm like, okay, I can't figure this out, I'm just going to let it go for now. And then I know for, like it's always pops back up for, that I should really think about this a little bit more. And then all of a sudden
Hmm.
one day, maybe a couple weeks later, I'm like, oh my god, that's it, that's the solution, right? And then you come back and now you're invigorated, and you're like, if you're collaborating with somebody, you're like, oh my god, yeah, I can see. And then you're back on course again, right? And part
Oh
of
yeah.
the failure part of it, the part where you're like, I couldn't figure out that problem and I just had to walk away from it, um you're cheating yourself of like the ability to actually like problem solve through that. And so you will never know if you're using that chat gpt now as a crutch to figure something out, if
Hmm.
you would have ever come to it on your own or come up with a better idea, or
Oh
been,
yeah.
had something the story would have gone in a completely different direction that would have, who knows what could have happened from it. And it's just, I just think that you're cheating yourself of all of that by using these programs. And
Yes.
that's the part of it that makes me really sad for you, because you're, you will never know. You will never ever know if it could have been different and it could have been
Hmm.
something magical, because that's really the thing that happens when you're either trying to come up with ideas on your own or with a team of people. There's a magic that happens because it's not just you, it's the group of you coming up with something that becomes more than the sum of its parts, right? And so adding something in there that doesn't think, it's just a, it's not really AI. We keep on saying it's AI. It's not. It's not intelligent. There's no intelligence to it.
Correct.
It's just, all it is doing is just speeding up the processing of all the information that's available to it, and being able to go through it to answer your specific questions. And so
Hmm.
at a light speed, uh, light speed to be able to get there would have may have taken you a lot longer if you tried it on your own, right? But
Yeah.
it's also taking it that much further, because it's also doing the work that you could have done for the whole creative process, right? So again, it's, there's a difference between, like researching something and and seeing what possible options there are for something that like if you're learning about some kind of historical event, you're like, okay, I'm going to use my Google, which is now connected to AI,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to see like what, and again, you don't know if it's correct or not. You just have to go, okay, well,
Yeah. That's the spooky part too.
yeah, like there's an author that we just got a book. We didn't, after the fact, didn't know that, oh wait, this book may not have been written by the person, it may have been AI generated, because you're looking through it and you're going, oh, there's weird things in here that a person should have caught, right? An editor would have caught, but it feels
Oh,
like it's a chat
interesting.
GPT thing. And when you look at the back for like bibliography. There's no bibliography there. And you go, oh, well, this person didn't like research any of the research they did. They just, had it, maybe they had a premise of an idea and some like things they wrote down, and then they just fed it into GPT, and it gave them all this information for them to basically collate together. But they don't know where the resources, they never looked to see where they originated from, or so anyway, it's one of those things where you have to, there's like a pre and a post. There's like AD, there's a CE and a BC, right? Like there's this division line now where let's say 2024, 2025, most things prior to that were people created, and now going after that, everything's going to be in doubt.
Yeah, and that's the weird part. And like when we were talking about it, an example or a thought I had was, and this book you got is a perfect example of this. Where imagine if you had taken the time to write a book, right? Like your average novelist, again, career novelist. I'm talking like Pattinson and all these people who do a book a year, who are extremely talented. Imagine if you went to an artist talk with them, or I guess a book launch with them, and you asked them questions, and they were like, "Oh, I had ChatGPT just like tell me this thing," right? Like, or even worse, right? Like publicly horrible, but even worse is if, as an author, you make a piece that is AI generated, even in part, and as a result of that, it does your research for you, and you don't actually know what you're sourcing. If you go to host one of these book launches and you have a genuine fan who's read your book and enjoyed it, start asking questions like, what happens when you can't answer them? How horrible would you feel, or frankly fraudulent would you feel, just knowing, right? Like, damn. Like, not even like the public knowing. I'm talking yourself. Like,
I'm going to go even darker than that, because the book we got was like kind of like one of those like health books, and so those things where so all that information you're putting in there, if it's not from a verified source, if it's not been here's the thing about a lot of this stuff. One of the death of expertise, which people are like, oh, I have a podcast, and now I can basically, spread any kind of information I want, and I don't have to think about like whether it's real or not. Well, there's the whole thing with any kind of science or journalistic endeavor. It's peer reviewed, which means that people who are of a high caliber of expertise and knowledge, and they are going to look at what you're doing with a critical eye and go, this information is incorrect, even if it's like one fact is off and could be a minor thing. They'll go and say, they'll flag it and go, this, you have to rewrite this, or you have to research this again. And so same thing with any kind of doctor or scientist, where they're being peer reviewed for anything that they're any theory they have about something, any information that they're researching. They're gonna send it out there for critical analysis, and that's kind of like not even considered. People don't consider that as a serious thing anymore. They'll go, oh, scientists, what do they know? And so now anybody has access to everything that's out on Google, and they can just go, okay, I'm really into writing. I'd like to know the effects of like zinc on the body, and I'm just going to research that through Google, and I've got all this information and all these charts that I found, and I'm just going to put it together into a book, and I'm going to say here. And of course there's going to be some like small legal written, this is the opinion of this person, don't take it seriously. But then what's the point of the book, right? If people aren't going to want to follow what you're putting in there because they want to find the reason why their health is off, right? And again, like where AI could be helpful in a closed system is if you have a company or like researchers who are all putting in their information,
Yes, that'd be sick.
and that's all been peer reviewed, and now it's collating it into, like, you're asking it questions about, well, we came up with this coefficient, but is it correct? And then it's got information from other scientists who puts, and that kind of thing could be very, very helpful. But that's
Oh
from
yeah.
peer reviewed, and it's a closed system, and then eventually it could be used as, like, created as an app for
Hmm.
anybody who's, like, interested in finding out about it, and that the source material, because it's been peer reviewed, is of a high caliber, right?
Yeah, and
And
trustable.
yes, right.
Huh.
So
So, oh my God, yes. I have many thoughts on this. But quickly, over on Instagram, thank you, Instagram viewers. Greg has mentioned, I think AI had the potential to be a great tool for early concept work. Should never have become a replacement for someone to further interpret or improve it. Agreed. There was
mhm,
actually very exactly to this point. There was the VGAs recently, the Video Game Awards, I believe, or some award show for the video games, where Expedition 33, which is I haven't played it, but I've heard it's amazing. I've seen clips and it looks really cool, and mechanically, from what I've heard, sounds good. Um, they got an award for best game, I believe, uh, among other things. Again, now my information's getting hazy, but I believe it was like best game or something. It's crazy because they're an indie group of developers who were basically all ex Ubisoft, I think it's Ubisoft employees, who just had creative differences with the company, so they left. They just built their own game, and it's rivaling AAA studios. Anyway, cool thing. But something that came out was early art. Was it early art? Some portion of the project on a very, very, very early stage, I think they were maybe testing the character rigging, so they needed something to rig to their code. I believe they used AI to spit an image out and put it on the rigging just to test it, and then that thing that was spat out was torn down, never used again as soon as they had the actual art.
mhm,
But because that happened and because the awards found out, um, there was, I believe, a risk of, if not actually, they had one of their awards taken away. Greg
mhm,
has said they swept the awards. Oh shit! So they have a whole bunch of awards. But it's interesting because even using it in that preliminary concept work, right, where you're testing something. I mean, again, I don't know in my example if that's actually what they were testing, but it was something super, super early on. It was like, okay, did you actually build this thing now? And sort of that touches on what we talked about earlier, Keith, which is like the act of even using it, even in a truly good way where you never use it again once you have the actual thing you need in place, brings up questions, and it's a scary thing.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
and Greg, thanks for commenting, Greg. I think that, like, he's bringing up an interesting point, which is that early on, let's say there were ethical standards that companies were, like, using, where they were saying things like, it's only going to be used in early research, and
Hmm.
here is, like, the proof of it, and we're going to not we're not going to use it, like, we're going to get rid of it as soon as we it's just to give us an idea of, like, I don't know, like, what something could look like, and then we're not, but and maybe if that had been the approach of the companies that were creating these programs,
Hmm.
like, if the companies creating the programs were like, we only want this to be used for research and development, and it's not to be used by the public right now because it's too dangerous a tool. It could, all the
Yep.
points we made earlier. And if that's how these early companies had decided to, and of course, human nature, just as good as we can be, we're also pretty shitty. And I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not what happened. And I don't know if it ever could have worked that way. But if that had been, like, maybe the mantra of some of these early AI adopters, the companies that were, it's purely research and development. It's purely going to help people, and therefore we're not monetizing it as of yet. It's going to be open source. I don't know, whatever they were going to do to make it like an ethical thing. It may have had a different kind of this. There may not have been a stigma attached to it. People may have been more comfortable with it. And then, of course, you would have had your bad actors, and that may have been, those people may have been looked at as like, well, we knew you were going to do this, but we really don't. We don't really have any interest in any of what you're creating. So, like, I think that would have been a potentially a different course we would have taken, but that's not how it happened. It was unfortunately a much more like it just seemed like it went the nefarious route really quickly, right?
I agree. Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. Over on YouTube, the wonderful Paul Kemp states,
Hello.
"Good evening, gentlemen. Awesome character, Keith."
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, and that's going to serve as my little segue. Not that we're done talking about AI. I don't think you and I will ever be done that conversation. But, Keith, I have currently but one question.
Yeah.
No, now it's two. But the first one, what? Oh, this is such a weird question. What does this character that you've drawn feel like?
Oh, like
if I were to hold it,
yeah.
What is it like? Is it skin? Is that skin that I'm looking? I'm because it's the fur. I'm looking at skin, right?
Initially, I felt like it was similar to that creature I created way back when. That was like made of like moss and.
Okay. Okay.
I kind of feel like that's what this thing is too. Like it's a, and in fact, it's a good idea for me to like maybe see what it looks like to add some like texture to it that would make it a little bit more obvious as to what it is that I'm doing. But I can't really say. I that's what I felt like it was initially, like some kind of like a creature made of like the land, and therefore it's gonna feel a bit rough and maybe it could be both. It could be like kind of soft and squishy in places and rough, and think of like the Swamp Thing, right? Swamp Thing is made of
sort of mossy.
Yeah, he's moss and probably some bark, and he's got the like those like turnipy things growing, the tubers growing off them that maybe I don't know if they're hard or I know they're crunchy, but maybe they're kind of spongy. Who knows? Like it could be a bunch of things, right? So it's a good question, and if it feels like it's soft and like something that you can like squeeze and it's like spongy, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But yeah, that's my answer for the as far as I can tell.
Okay. Because like now the next question is, this thing appears to be log rolling some sort of sphere, unless that is a log and we're just seeing it from the perfect end,
or it's the top of a mound or something. That's how
and he's leap. Okay Oh, that's just such a creature. How you mentioned earlier you thought maybe it was like a little Pokemon or something. How knowledgeable are you about Pokemon?
Not at all. I mean,
not at all. Okay,
I've seen like the movie, and I'm pretty much aware of what it is, but I've never played the games. I've never played the card games or the video games. It was a bit after my childhood. Like it's just one of those things that I think that it's kind of like that, and Magic the Card, like that, the Gathering, that was a bit after that one. Yeah. It's not to say that like I couldn't have played it, but by the time I was moving off from like D&D, and I still, comic books was like the only thing, but like collecting toys and all that, playing toys, role playing, even video games, I kind of started to wane out of a bit. And so Pokemon was around that time. If it had been maybe,
you kind of dodged it.
Yeah, it was around in the early 90s.
I want to say mid 90s to late 90s. But yes, I was very young when it came out. So it was
Yeah.
like right up the alley for me. That was my thing. Um, Fascinating. And it's my other question, Keith, because you can't convey this through what you're doing. Um, it's mossy. It's squishy. Uh, what's this sound like? Like this thing's got its open mouth. It looks like it has teeth. Some liquid coming out. Is this thing like screaming? What is it? Yeah. Does it make sound? Does it vocalize?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. What do you think?
I'm getting like a squealing kind of sound that's coming to mind. Um,
Sure.
Over on Instagram, Greg says I was getting big Pokemon vibes. It made me think of another artist's Pokemon style. Lagon's art. Hold, please. No, I don't want to report it. Just want to search it. Boop. Instagram. Lagonzart. Search. Oh, followed by a bunch of people I know. Lagon's art. I'm gonna give them a follow. I'm gonna actually bring them up on screen real quick, just for funsies. Konrad, how are you gonna do this? We're gonna click the screen share button, and yeah, that's right, share. Whoop! Oh my God, there's so much on screen. Cool. So they are followed by. Do you know this person?
No, Laganza. No, it's a. Can you pull it down so I can see some of the art?
Yes. Oh, okay. Ew.
And they're a tattoo artist. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there is for sure like a little bit of a. I can see a similar kind of vibe maybe, but
Yeah.
or like a little bit of like Ren and Stimpy or Garbage Pail Kids or
Yeah. It's the detail you go into for me. Stuff like this anyway, where it's like, yeah, this is like Ren and Stimpy. Oh, yep, okay. I see it. Very cool. There we go. Cool, and it returns. Fascinating. But yeah, like it's those kind of questions that when oh no, you're coloring it now. Oh boy. Okay. That like whenever I see that super graphic style, especially because of the way you've used all the different shading to really add layer and density and texture to the plant matter. The immediate question is like, how big is it? Like, can I hold this thing in my hand, or is this my size? Right.
right.
And then it's like, okay, what does it sound like? Because it's got a mouth, so I assume it can vocalize at least. Yeah, that's the kind of weird stuff that goes into my brain.
No, these are all good. Listen, this would be part of like the conversation of like what what if this is going to be a story, like what is this character, right? Like what do they sound like, and are they squishy, and how big are they? Like these are all questions a writer is going to be an artist as well. They're going to ask, to figure it out so that they can then fill out the story in their mind. Like then you start asking questions of like, okay, so is this creature part of a pack? Is it like living in the forest? Is it been chased from its home? Is it have like human qualities to it, or is it more animal like? Does it have like if it is more like human, does it have a civilization? Does it have tools? Like all those questions become, you want to know the answers to them, right? Because that's like you're curious. It's piqued your interest. So I don't know what that is. That's part of like, the if I can shamelessly plug the other podcast I'm part of?
Yes, please do.
So the Imagination Factory podcast that I co-host with Sarah Furlong. Thank you, sir. So that's kind of what we tackle. We're doing it in a more long form. Then this is more like a singular thing that I create, and Konrad will often ask questions about it, and that's the like the fun part for what we're doing for this particular episode. And then the next one, it could be something completely different. But the Imagination Factory is a long form one. It's watching Sarah and I create something that didn't exist prior to the podcast, develop into like what the world looks like, then what does the character look like, then what is the character like in this story that we're going to create, and then how do you actually create the infrastructure for the story so that eventually you can get like a finished comic book page or series of pages, right? So anyway, but these are all good questions, and I like knowing what you think, because I'm just going with like visually, I'm just like, it's whatever's coming out of my imagination, whatever I'm seeing this as a reference. Because I see what I'm doing as a reference, then from there I add on to that reference and go in a particular direction, because now I've started to go, okay, well, it's obviously a creature that may live in the forest, and so what does that look like, and blah blah blah, right? So
this creature in my brain, when I'm writing up a story, if you gave me a creature like this, one, I think it's large enough that I could hold it in two hands like this.
Okay.
My thumbs would be just under its mouth because I don't want to get bit. And I think its arms would be between my index and middle fingers. And because it scares me, I feel like these things have to be pack animals, because like I feel like one of these things would be like but like not terrifying. But if there was like 11 of them, oh my god,
right? Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. That's just the vibe I'm getting. Green, it's very, it's squishy, and like that makes me uncomfy. The hair, like I'm still, my brain is seeing that as straight up hair, so it's like this plant thing with like fur.
So yeah, who knows? I mean, it could be kind of, once you get to know it, you could be like, oh, this is kind of sweet, but then also you can be like, oh, maybe it's not as sweet as I thought. Maybe it's kind of a little bit mischievous, could be gremlin-like, right? So,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the fact that you've like not touched what I am registering as the eyeballs at all with any of your shading or coloring beyond like the initial bit, freaky. Like it looks weird. But I think if the eyes were like super dark and black or something, it'd be even worse. I don't know.
Or maybe if I color them. I haven't really approached that yet, but how much time do I have? A couple minutes, so
yeah. Huh. But it has a tail that indicates like a bone structure too, unless it's just like a loose, limp kind of flat.
I don't know. Who knows? It's part of the mystique of this thing, right?
Absolutely. And the joy of not using AI. We get to have really strange conversations. And you get to just go with the flow. Oh, no. Okay.
There we go. A bit of,
that's uncomfortable. Like, and because of the shade of green and purple you've chosen, or pink, it feels not that it is, but it would make me sickly. Like it feels toxic.
Just wonder if these Do you like the
So,
white there? Or?
well, I want to ask. So that's your lighting. I think I like it with the light. Although I think you had a slider earlier and you made those a little darker.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like it because the highlights are interesting. Like it's broken out into a field or something. But I find that a very interesting way to have lit it. Was there a sort of a methodology there, or was it just to get some sort of highlight in the field?
Yeah, just to know where the light source is coming from,
Mm.
right? Because then I could always actually add a bit of pink to that. Go. There we go. Add a little pink, so now you kind of like almost like have a tinge of pink.
Well, now it is being lit with pink, so now it's not a pink and green creature. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Awesome.
Anyway, we're almost done.
I'll say we're at 8. That is our hour, Keith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, absolutely. One, thank you very much to Greg over on Instagram
Thank you,
for the
Greg.
questions and comments. Yeah. As of course, always, Mr. Paul Kemp, thank you so much. To the other viewers on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to please go on your YouTube connection after this, because you're probably watching on YouTube, and check out the Imagination Factory. To go check out this wonderful man and his partner in crime, Sarah, as they create comics. First episode deciding on what to make, and then kind of running with it.
And then also go to Wednesday Night Review, Konrad's podcast, where he will be hopefully having some interesting people that I don't know if I want to say anything yet, but
Go for it.
Okay. So the organizers of YetiCon are going to be on in a few weeks. I believe that, I don't know if you're going to release it like too much longer after that, but
I will likely go live with them that very day.
Fantastic.
So it will be a live interview to create the operator and owner of YetiCon. Two separate people. Which is super cool. Thank you for that, Keith. And separately, I have an interview on the 24th, creator of Sussex. I'll also double check the 20th. Hold on. Let me not put my foot in my mouth.
February 24th?
February. Sorry, February 24th, which is a Tuesday, this Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m. because the creator, Nick Good, he's actually over the pond, and it'll be his 11:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be cool. It's like health and the stresses of being a spy. Very interesting. But that being said, Keith, as always, thank you for with me and chatting about art.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate I'm glad we were able to kind of get some of these things off of our chest about AI. So I feel a bit better now.
Absolutely. Well, to the folks out there,